why seawater is so salty? You probably have a lot of other questions in your mind about the sea, which is why in today's video, we are going to tell you some important facts about the sea. Time to put your curious hats on, guys. Let us start by taking a look at a very common mistake people make. What is the difference between an ocean and the sea? Most of the time, people use the words sea and ocean as if they are the same. Even though it isn't wrong, scientifically, seas are part of an ocean. An ocean is a body of water that is nearest to the land. So at the coastline, you'll have an ocean, but when you move into the center of the ocean, that will bring you to a sea. A good example is the Caribbean Sea, which is between Central America and the Caribbean islands. And speaking of size, the biggest ocean on our planet is the Pacific. It is larger and much deeper than 3 oceans put together. 71% of our Earth is covered with water, and in this water, only a tiny part is fresh water which we can use. Which brings us to the question, why is seawater salty? Seawater is salty because it has a lot of minerals, like salt, that come from rocks on land. When it rains, water flows over rocks and picks up tiny bits of minerals. These minerals, including salt, are carried by rivers and streams into the ocean. Over millions of years, salt has built up in the seawater. Plants and animals that live in the ocean are used to this salty environment and depend on it for their survival. Another way seawater turns salty is by carrying small amounts of undissolved salts from the land to the ocean. The continuous flow of river adds a lot of salt to the sea. Think of it like adding a pinch of salt to a big pot of water every day. Eventually, the pot becomes salty. If you thought this was interesting, then let's take a look at what kind of salt is inside seawater and whether we can drink seawater or not. What is the most common type of salt in seawater, and can you drink seawater? The most common type of salt in seawater is sodium chloride, which is the same salt we use in our food. Sodium chloride is made up of 2 elements, sodium and chlorine. When they combine, they form salt crystals. If you've tasted salt, you know that it has a strong flavor. In the ocean, these salt crystals dissolve in water, making it taste salty. Besides sodium chloride, seawater contains other salts too. You should not drink seawater because it is too salty. Drinking seawater can make you thirsty and sick. Our bodies need fresh water to stay hydrated and healthy, and seawater contains way too much salt than our kidneys can handle. If you drink seawater, then it can cause dehydration because the body has to use more water to get rid of extra salt. This is exactly the reason why sailors and people who are stranded at sea cannot drink ocean water, even if they are thirsty. It is always better to drink water from a place where it is fresh. We also see some salt being left behind on the beach sometimes, and that makes us wonder, are all seas equally salty? When seawater splashes onto the beach and dries up, it leaves the salt behind. You can sometimes see this as white crystals. This happens because when the sun heats up the water, it evaporates, but the salt does not. You might see these white crystals on rocks, sand, or even on your skin after swimming in the sea. This natural process shows us how salt is being constantly recycled several times through the environment. But not all seas contain the same amount of salt water. For example, the Dead Sea is much saltier than other seas. The Dead Sea is so salty because it is a landlocked body of water. A landlocked body is a piece of land that is enclosed by land from all sides. Water flows into the Dead Sea, but it doesn't flow out. Therefore, the only way water leaves the sea is by the process of evaporation, leaving behind a high amount of salt. On the other hand, other seas and oceans have rivers that flow into and out of them. This helps them to balance their salt levels. The amount of salt in a sea depends on different factors, such as their evaporation rate and where they are situated in the world. With different levels of salt in different seas, not all creatures are able to survive in seawater. What creatures are able to live in seawater? There are many different creatures that live in the seawater, such as fish, crabs, dolphins, and whales. These animals are adapted to survive in salty conditions. For example, fish have gills that help them filter out excess salt from their bodies. You also have crabs that have hard shells to protect them, and dolphins and whales have special kidneys that allow them to handle salt in such high quantities. The sea is a vast habitat with many different environments, from shallow reefs to the deep sea. Each has unique creatures in them. Marine plants like seaweed and algae also survive in seawater, where they provide food and shelter to many animals in the sea. In this video, we got to know all about seawater. Why is it salty? What is the most common type of salt in seawater? And whether seawater is safe to drink or not? We also looked at the kind of animals that are able to live in seawater and if all seas contain the same amount of seawater or not. Hope this was helpful for you. Watch out for the next video in this I Wonder Why series. Bye-bye!